see now. Papa got beats making headlines.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke something. Try the marijuana. I was loving you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feelings changed. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you
Welcome to Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael Sean Dugar. You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, at Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who watches and subscribes to our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. That's Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Thank you for all the love and support on there. For my audio folks, just pause it real quick, shoot over there to YouTube, hit subscribe, come right back. It helps us out a lot. Thank you so much. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It is your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that is CKid206.
All right, we have our post-draft kind of wrap-up analysis show kicking off for you, one of our favorite shows of the offseason, in part because we bring on the expert, the author of The Beast, a.k.a. the Draft Bible, the homie from The Athletic, Dane Brugler. Dane, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Can't complain, man. We are doing good, and thank you again for putting out The Beast because it helps myself and others across the nation and just preparing for the draft. Me and Mike love it, so it's always good to have you on talking about some of these draft prospects, so we appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's so cool. In the lead up to the draft, how many people use it, but then draft weekend, the 3 days, as these picks come flying off the board, my Twitter just gets blown up by, hey, according to the Beast, this, and this, whether it's a random fact or, strengths, weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. And so seeing how many people get use out of it reminds me why I do it, and so it's really cool to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to live without the Beast, man. Whenever they ask me to do a mock draft, I'm like, when's Dane's Beast coming out? Like, I'm gonna just wait until the Beast comes out. And even on the day 3 of the draft, our assignment for all the beat writers was to tweet analysis of the picks. And I'm just like, you know what, man, I'm gonna cheat the game. I'm just whatever Dane said about this guy in the 6th round. There you go, folks. I'm not gonna pretend to know what's going on with Auburn secondary, for instance. I didn't watch the SEC like that, but Dane did. So here you go. Here's some info on DJ James, who we'll get to later. But we're gonna talk about the draft class, which you had when you ranked all of them 1 through 32. You had the Seahawks right smack in the middle at 16. What do you like, dislike about the class? And I guess what would the Seahawks have to have done to maybe bump that ranking higher?
Yeah, it's always tough, because there were only like 1 or 2 teams that I really, disliked. So when you rank them 1 through 32, it's kind of obviously the teams that had more picks, like, the Bears were number 1. They had 2 picks in the top 10, and I thought they knocked it out of the park with both picks. So easy pick at number 1. The Cardinals had 12 picks, and I thought they did a nice job maximizing the value of those picks. So the teams with the more picks, especially in the top 100, clearly had an advantage. And that's where with the Seahawks having only 2 picks in the top 100 put them at a little bit of a disadvantage, but I loved what they did with both those picks. And so that gave them a bump over some of those other teams that even had more picks in the top 100. So, I was up and down with what they did on day 3, but what they did with Byron Murphy in the 1st round, and then they come back with Christian Haynes in the 3rd round, I thought that was, as good as you could hope for going into a draft with where they were picking.
Looking ahead, not too much to the future, but looking just into the season, is there a day 3 pick that you think could actually surprise Seahawk fans this season that you're saying, you know what? Yeah, he's going to make some noise.
Yeah, Tyrice Knight, the linebacker, he is just, the way he plays is that mentality, that attitude. I think that's something that's going to get him on the field, in some way. Special teams, and then compete for a spot on defense. I think that is something. I graded him as more like a 5th rounder. They took him in the 4th. Obviously, I think the Seahawks seeing the same things that I was seeing in terms of just the attitude that he plays with, and you think about the new scheme now in Seattle and what they could be looking for a linebacker. I think it aligns, and so Knight's one of those guys that I'm excited to see how quickly he can adapt, and I don't think it's going to take long for him to get on the field.
I agree with that. Yeah, reading the Beast, I was thinking, oh, this sounds like a Seahawky type player, although it's a new regime. I
Right.
think just his ability to get in the backfield, make plays, Mike McDonald just could not pass up on this kid. But let's go into some of these guys because the Seahawks selected Christian Haynes, guard, in the 3rd round, 81st overall, and they had to wait for this kid. And my question is, honestly, what stands out about Haynes is his strength in pass pro, or do you see that more in the run game where his strength lies?
I think the run game is what stands out first and foremost, because he's so good at. My favorite thing about Haynes, just overall, when you watch it, because that UConn program was not good. I mean, he was there for 6 years, and they just were not a good program. But it didn't matter to him. In the 4th quarter in a blowout, when they have no shot, he's still blocking his butt off. And you especially see it in the run game because he will dig out, drive defenders. You love the finishing toughness that he plays with. Like the buzzwords like grit and finish and all that. Like it fits for him. And the coaches back that up. Talking to coaches throughout this process at UConn, they were all like, "Yeah, he's awesome. Like this is the type of guy that we want to represent our program." And it's the way he plays. It's the football character, the way he carries himself behind the scenes. He's reliable. He doesn't miss games. So with Christian Haynes, I'm shocked he fell as far as he did, to be honest with you, and he killed the process. Goes to the Senior Bowl, has a great week in Mobile. Goes to the combine, tests, I think, better than most people expected. Like he's not like on film, he's not a bad athlete by any means, but I don't think he always plays up to the level that he tested. But it's when you can go out there at 320 pounds and run a 503 and jump 33 inches. Those are great numbers. So check that box with a combine. And so I think he just the tape that he put on film and then what he did through the process. This is a player I thought, was a borderline top 50 pick. And for the Seahawks able to get him in the 3rd, I thought was tremendous value.
What do you think the reason was that he did fall? Because, yeah, that was, I guess, kind of interesting seeing where players went and then for this kid to, in your point, fall. Was there something that maybe that you thought, okay, this could be a reason?
I don't think there was anything like specific. It was just, like I said, I don't think he always plays up to those testing numbers. So there's a kind of a disconnect there. When you watch the film, you see a solid athlete, but he wasn't maybe the level of athlete that some schemes look for. But he's, I think, more than capable, more than a functional athlete with the way he moves. And so, and some of that shows up in pass protection. He's an older player. Some teams, they don't want 24-year-olds in the 3rd round, top 100. But I think, that's the half glass empty. Half glass full is this guy's ready to go. He's going to be competing for a starting role right away because he has the experience. He played over 50 games in college. He's maybe the fact that he wasn't versatile in college, maybe that played a part too. He was a right guard only. So, you have to go back to high school to see him play a different position, and maybe that played a part in, teams looking at it and saying, we're just not confident he can play left guard, or we're not confident he can help us out. And, he's kind of a right guard. So, I think that maybe played a part, but it wasn't anything glaring that made it seem like, this guy should have fallen as far as he did.
Yeah, there's a lot of older prospects in this class, not just the Seahawks class, but as you know, in the draft in general. We've seen a lot of guys take advantage of that COVID year. Some 6-year seniors. I think the Seahawks drafted 3 6-year guys. Really, only one underclassman, and that was Byron Murphy. So they I asked John Snyder about that. Actually, he said it's just about the COVID year. They weren't like intentionally looking for dudes with AARP memberships or anything. But they definitely got a bunch of older, ready to go prospects though, which is
Right.
what the Seahawks need. Is they're kind of overhauling their roster right now. One more on Christian. We don't really know what Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff are going to do in the run game, particularly if they're going to be master in a zone or going to be a gap team or try to do a little bit of everything. But in terms of maximizing what Christian does well from the jump, is that more of the zone stuff they were doing at UConn, or do you think that he could put him in a gap scheme matters more? What do you think?
At UConn, they did run more zone, and yeah, you think about that watching that Washington offense last year. You see a lot of zone, and so I do think it matches up with theoretically what we could see them do on offense this year. But yeah, I think he is a guy that there is versatility there in terms of gap or zone scheme. I don't think he's pigeonholed for only this or only that. I do think he's going to be able to help out, no matter how they figure out how to run the best offense. So yeah, he's a smart guy. I think I enjoyed talking to him, just listening to him talk about the game, what he sees, how he breaks down, pre-snap, what he's looking for, and then on the move, how he adjusts, things like that. So Christian Haynes is a guy that, kind of like we've been talking about, he's played a ton of snaps in college. He's seen a lot, and I think that is only going to help him adapt pretty quickly once he gets on the field there in training camp.
Sataoa Laumea, this big boy here. The Seahawks were able to get him, and did I get his name right? That's the biggest thing. Pretty good.
Yeah.
I worked on it, but we got through it. So the Seahawks select him round 6, 179 overall. And in this scenario, I'm curious, what position do you see him having the most success at? Is he going to be someone that excels at pass pro, or is he going to be able to really help the Seahawks in the run game in the future?
I think he can do both. I mean, run game's probably where he stood out the most, but I thought he was pretty good in pass protection. He was interesting because you liked his tape, and then it was just okay. Because he played mostly right tackle. He was a right guard initially as an underclassman. Then they moved him to right tackle the past 2 years over there at Utah. And that was kind of the question: is he going to be able to play tackle in the NFL, or is he going to be moving inside to guard? I graded him as more of a guard. He's not the longest player. I think when you look at some of the movements, some of the range, some of the mirroring, it was okay. But against NFL level athletes, I think that's where it might, if he oversets, it's tough for him to adjust and recover. And so I like him best in the run game. That's where you see the natural strength. You see his control. The way he uses his hands is really good. Once he locks on, once he engages, he's able to redirect, and he's going to take defenders where he wants to once he gets his legs moving. So, and you see the hands in pass pro too, because he will punch. He's got that 6-inch punch. He's he works really well with the timing. So he can. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a bull rusher, you're dealing with more of a speed guy. He has good timing out on the edge. But I think that'll even be maximized when he moves inside to guard. So I liked him better as a guard, but it'll be interesting to see once they get him to camp, where do they use him the most? Do they see him as a kind of like a swing backup where we could use back up a guard, back up a tackle? Another guy that played a lot of football, he had like 44 starts at Utah. So another guy that had a ton of experience. They ran a lot of zone in that offense at Utah. So he's a guy that can, I think, a lot of what we said about Haynes. He's experienced. He's done a lot. He's got a little more versatility than Haynes. But you feel like, there's something, maybe not a starter right away, but he's going to be able to help you out with depth at multiple spots. And then even down the road, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's able to break into that starting lineup.
Yeah, how long do you think? I mean, you don't have a crystal ball or anything, but just based on his skill set, assuming the Seahawks are moving him to guard, which I believe that they are, how long do you think it would take for him to be a starting caliber guard in the NFL?
It's tough because I think let's just say there's an injury and they throw him out there right away. I think that there's going to be bumps, road bumps. He's going to have to learn on the fly. But I think he's someone that is going to be able to learn on the fly. I think he's going to, make a mistake. Okay, make sure it doesn't happen again. So the mistakes will pile up, but I think he'll do a good job of not making the same mistake twice, type of thing. So I think it just depends on when they feel comfortable, because they could throw him out there as a rookie. They just have to be okay with the learning curve as it comes. So I'll be interested to because he was one of those guys pre-draft that, the tape says, okay, this guy can start at the next level. It's just it's going to take some coaching. It's going to take some, tweaking of the things here and there, weight transfer and, some of these things. But I think he has the ability. It's just, when did the Seahawks feel comfortable putting him out there? It could be this season. I wouldn't be surprised.
We're seeing a theme here. We're seeing experienced guards helping the run game. Like I haven't even talked to Ryan Grubb yet this offseason, but we're kind of getting a feel for, based on the draft, okay, what may be going on here. And even their tight end pick of AJ Barner kind of fits this as well. I mean, are we just looking at a C-gap monster, or is he going to be able to help in the pass game as well?
Yeah, obviously the stats aren't going to jump off the page. He never had more than 250 yards receiving in a season. Even in the red zone, he wasn't really that much of a pass catching threat. He had as many drops as touchdown catches over his career. But I think part of that is the offense and what he was asked to do within that Michigan offense. Not a great athlete, solid athlete. But for a guy that's 250 pounds, obviously you maybe want better than a 4.84 in the 40-yard dash. But he is. I think he's first and foremost going to be an inline guy blocking. That's where he's going to earn his paycheck. But when he's targeted, I mean, he can make things happen. So I think that when he was asked to be a pass catcher, he did a nice job. He just happened to be on a Michigan offense that had a tight end who's actually my 2025 mock draft for next year. So he wasn't given as many pass catching targets as maybe if he were the tight end one and in a different offense. So but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. His bread and butter is going to be what he does as a blocker. He doesn't necessarily look like a true Y, but he's a solid athlete. He's gonna he's gonna fit his hands right. He's gonna use angles well. So he's a guy I thought maybe 5th round, 6th round. They take him in the 4th, but I think he fits what they want to be on offense.
It's funny. I asked Mike. I said, "Man, do you have the beast from 2018?" And Mike was like, "Actually, Dane wasn't with the Athletic at the time, so I was surfing online trying to find it." And the reason why I bring it up is because I thought immediately when I saw AJ Barter's name, I was like, "Man, what I'm thinking of is Will Dissly, a guy that came in that obviously wasn't going to blow you away with his speed, but in scenarios he could definitely run block for you. And if you need him to catch the football, he can do that." And his first year, I think his stats were he had 8 catches for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not eye-popping, but in this scenario for AJ, would that be a good comp for him to come in and be someone like a Will Dissly his rookie season? And then if things explode and he's able to find his groove in the offense, that's fine too, obviously.
Yeah, and I would throw Colby Parkinson in there too, as even just like the way they look and the size, being 6'6", 250. Like I think that he matches, and like you said, this is a new scheme, and we have a new head coach, but same general manager, and I think that AJ Barner fits the tight end mold that they've drafted in the past. In those middle rounds, guys that are more, they can be two-way players. They can block, they can catch the ball. Maybe not explosive athletes in terms of stretching the seam and doing that kind of thing, but they are just steady, dependable guys that they don't have to be on the field, or they don't have to be schemed in a certain situation. You want them to line up in line, they can do that. You want them, give them a rep or two in the slot, line them up on the wing, in the backfield. Like, they can do all these different things. And you look at Dissly and Parkinson, these guys, it kind of matches up what the Seahawks MO is when they draft tight ends.
Yeah, and hearing from AJ on draft night, he was just one of those guys who you could tell when he was in the interviews, all of the like the old school, I don't want to call him meathead, but just like the traditional, I love football guy. I don't want my guys loving anything else but football. You could tell he blew those guys away because he just sounds like a football. I mean, he's probably got another hobby in life. I'm sure he loves whatever it is, but he definitely sounds like it's football. He loves football. Just wants to hit people in the face. And if your job is going to be, hey, right here in this C gap, that's you. Go handle that. Like, you need a guy who loves football because, like you said, you ain't gonna be schemed up right there. You're just gonna be smashing heads with folks for about an hour, and we need you to carve out these hard yards. So
special teams too. I think that'll be something that he immediately. I think he'll find a role on special teams and make a difference there as well.
Dan, I gotta ask. I know you're thorough with this. Like the Beast is the most thorough thing I think I've ever read in my life in any genre. How in the world do you get a guy like Mike Jarrell from Finley on your radar when you're going over this 2024 draft class? How do you find this guy?
Well, I mean, that's my favorite part of this process is, coming across these hidden gems or the guys that aren't well-known names. I mean, there's almost 2,000 players in the Beast, obviously. So it's there's a lot of unknown guys. But I talking to scouts, throughout the year, you come across these guys, and then All-Star season helps as well, and then testing helps. If you have some buzz, and not like he's going to be a top 100 pick, but if you have any buzz from scouts, if a scout brings you up, because that's really my entire fall is nothing but watching tape, talking to scouts, and so if a scout brings you up in the fall, okay, check that box. If you go to an All-Star game, even if it's there's 6, 7 All-Star games, even if it's the 7th All-Star game, okay, check that box. You're at least you made it to that point. And then if you test well, okay, check another box. And that's what Mike Jarrell, he's checking all these boxes where it might not. Finley is not a well-known school necessarily, but I'm an Ohio guy, so I know of it.
Okay, there we go. That's part of it.
Yeah, that is part of it. But he is he's a guy that had options too. He could have transferred to a bigger school for his last year because he's a 6-year guy. He decided not to. He stayed put, stay with the same offensive line coach and room and that kind of thing. But he's just been a rock solid player, and he's gotten better and better. He was the offensive lineman of the year of his conference this past year. He's an All-American, playing mostly right tackle, and then he tested really well. He was in the 4.9s in the 40-yard dash. This 3-cone was impressive. His vertical was impressive. So, and then I enjoyed talking to him too. Like, he's a smart guy. He sees football really well. The way he can process, the way he can, he understands. Like, for most, different rushers give you different things. Whether it's power, whether it's they rely on certain moves, different things. Like, and he has a good understanding of that. So you can tell he prepares. You can tell he does his work. So he is. Most of the work is done between games, and then on game day he's ready to go because he did all the work already. He knows what to expect from this rusher. He knows what to expect from the scheme, and so that really came through when I talked to him. And I think that's something that is certainly going to help him at the pro game. And I'm sure it's something that came through in interviews with the Seahawks. He was kind of like a borderline guy. Like, some teams thought, maybe he'll get late rounds, maybe he'll get in there. Other teams said, no, he's a PFA. But credit to him. He obviously made enough of an impact with his time talking to the Seahawks that he was able to get drafted. So I'm very happy for Mike.
The one thing about Seahawks drafts is you never know what they're going to do. When you look at what they have available this season, they have the 16th pick all the way up to 81. That's their second pick. So a lot of people, including myself, no way the Seahawks would sit there and just take the 16th pick. Right. There's only maybe a couple of dudes that if they were there, which I didn't think they would be, they wouldn't take that opportunity. And sure enough, opportunity presented itself. I take Byron Murphy first, 16th overall. And in this scenario, obviously the Seahawks said, yeah, we got the best player that we thought was on that board defensively. So my question is straight. How can Byron Murphy impact this defensive line? Last year, they went to 31st out of 32nd in the run. So how is he going to impact, the run game, getting to the quarterback? How can he make this defensive line a better unit?
I think the Seahawks liked Byron Murphy more than any other team. And I'm not just saying that because, and I would have told you that last week before the draft, knowing how they felt about Byron Murphy. I know he was very high on their board. I don't know if they had offers to trade back. Maybe they did. I'm sure it's something they considered, but it was not. It was going to be hard to trade away from Murphy. I mean, they were sitting at 16 on pins and needles, waiting to see, okay, is he going to get past 13, 14, 15, and waiting, and he got there. And what you love about Murphy is he's equally disruptive rushing the quarterback as he is against the run. Okay, you want to see how he lines up as a 3 technique? You can throw on the tape and see him do it. You want to see how he does as a shaded nose? Throw on the tape and you can see him do it. He played up and down that defensive line for the Longhorns, and he did it on every snap. He was really impressive. By mid-season this past year, it was kind of clear, like, okay, this guy's different, because coming into the season, coming into last fall, he wasn't necessarily a guy that we were talking about as a top 1 or a top 50 pick. We were talking about him as, maybe a 3rd round guy who could emerge and be that kind of player. And then as the season went on, it was like, all right, this guy is legit. The way he moves, there's just a little more twitch in his lower body, a little more violence with his hands. Everything was a little bit different than most defensive tackles that we were watching. And so Murphy continued to move up throughout the season, had a great combine, worked out well, kind of solidified himself as the top defensive tackle this year. He another guy that I really enjoyed talking to, because, he didn't envision himself as being a defensive tackle. He grew up wanting to be a running back. That's what he always thought he was going to be. And in high school, he was a linebacker. And I was like, well, then how'd you become a defensive tackle? And he told me how they created this pressure package where he would the linebacker, the Mike, he would move up and kind of rush from the A gap, and he was so effective that after a couple games, they were like, all right, you're a defensive tackle now, because you're so good rushing up the middle like that, because no one can stop you because you're quicker than everybody else, and you have the natural power where you're just able to blow by everybody. And, his senior year, he broke Von Miller's sack record at DeSoto High School. So, he is a guy that the mentality is there, the physical ability is there, and just, the explosive power that he brings to the field is it's a lot of fun. So, Byron Murphy was one of my favorite players in the draft, because he's just an easy player to like. And I think for the Seahawks, I love the fit, and he's a guy that's going to get out there pretty early.
Yeah, the Seahawks did have offers to trade back. They turned him down. He was one of those guys where if he's there, we're staying. For me, and my mocks, I only had 2 of those guys for the Seahawks. It was Byron, and then I'm a big Cooper. We're Cooper DeJean guys on this show.
Sure.
So I think we think he's going to kill it in the league at whatever position that they put him at. And Byron, was the other guy. And I want to stay on him for a second, because his skill set is becoming premium. You look at the guys who are getting paid. I mean, Barrymore just got paid by the Patriots at $21 million a year, and $21 million for a defensive tackle barely cracks the top 10, on a per year average. That shows you how valuable it is to have that, like you said, that nose 3 technique flexibility. And from the 3 technique in particular, it's for the Seahawks, can you get to the passer from here? Because if you can, we'll love you for life. That's why they like Jaron Reed. That's why they just gave Leonard Williams the bag. And that's why they love Byron Murphy, because he can do that as well. In the context of seeing all these DTs get paid this offseason, what is Byron's potential ceiling? Maybe not his rookie year, but the best version of him as a pass rusher. What do you think that looks like in the NFL?
I mean, we just have to look at the Ravens defense last year, right? And look at, how they use those guys. I mean, he has a chance to, really emerge as the linchpin of this defense, the guy that makes it go. It might not be immediate, but at this time next year when we're talking, I think that's how we're going to speak of Byron Murphy as being that type of guy. And he doesn't necessarily look like maybe you want your defensive tackle to look. He's a little undersized. He's very compact. It's evenly distributed throughout, his muscle and the way he carries him, all that build on him. But he's right around 300 pounds, and he's right around 6'1.5", and he doesn't have these super long arms, but he's so good at understanding. It's not like he woke up one day and he was smaller than he used to be. He's been this size for a while, right? So he understands how to use it. He understands how to. You'll watch some of his tape, and his knees will be on the ground, in order to get underneath blockers and control the gap. So he just understands leverage really, really well. He understands what he needs to do to win the rep. So it's not just the physical ability. It's not just being stronger than anybody else. It's not even like just the violence, the way he plays. It's the understanding of what he needs to do. It's very skillful. A lot of guys, a lot of rookies, when they come into the league, they're so used to being faster, stronger than everybody else that it takes them a while, if they're ever able to do it, to adapt the technical side of things and all that. Where I think Byron Murphy, he is already advanced in that level where he understands how to use his hands, he understands leverage, he understands these different points of emphasis that I think take a little bit longer. So I'm excited to see right away the impact he can make, and then sky's the limit. I think you make a great point mentioning the defensive tackle boom we're having right now. If you don't have those guys, you're going to be on a search for them. And so the Seahawks, they got the best one in this draft with Byron Murphy.
Speaking of sky's the limit, I don't know if this is accurate or not, because now with social media, there's AI. People are really good at creating things that just aren't real. But I did see a post where it mentioned it was Aaron Donald retiring, and Byron created, either it was on his Instagram or someone, to my point, was really creative and created something. It said, "I'm up next," pretty much. The GOAT's retiring. It's my time. Obviously, that could be a huge reach, but you mentioned his size, and that's actually comparable to Aaron Donald, just because he was not the biggest dude, but boy, was he stacked well. So in that scenario, who does his game remind you of? Is it fair to say that, it could be Aaron Donald, although Aaron Donald might be one of the greatest defensive players we've ever seen. So
Right.
it's a lot of high expectations. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, Aaron Donald's different, right? I mean, there's a good chance the rest of our lives we never see another Aaron Donald. So it is lofty to put that name out. I threw out the Grady Jarrett. That was kind of the name, the type of player that he reminded me of, and it goes back to him being that disruptive energy that he brings, not just as a pass rusher, but also against the run. I mean, that's where it really shows up, where he can hold the point of attack, he can anchor down, and he's not going to move, even versus doubles. So, but I think he also has the quickness. He also has that twitch in his lower body, the twitch in his hips, where, he's going to be able to be a gap shooter if that's what he's trying to do. So, I mean, you look back at Justin Matabuke and that Ravens defense under Mike McDonald, and you think about how that was. You don't necessarily think of that position as being the strength of the unit of the whole defense, or but it matters. That's what really allowed the Ravens defense to be what it was last year. Was Justin Matabuke, and he obviously got paid accordingly. It could be the same way for this new version of the Seahawks defense with Byron Murphy, and I think Grady Jarrett makes a lot of sense. Where you want to be a 3 technique, he can do that. You want to be a shaded nose, he can do that. And the fact that you can throw in the tape and see him do it at a high level, and it's not projection, that just added the value to a player like this. It really lessened the projection with him.
Yeah, we don't have to. The Seahawks with Pete Carroll, they had like these pivot points or these inflection points. They would play certain games or play certain teams, and then it would be like, wow, we have to change what we do. They changed their fronts when the Robert Woods jet sweeps were just smoking them. In like 2018, 2019-ish, they're like, all right, bare fronts it is. And then 2022 for them, when they got smoked in that playoff game against the Niners, it was like, let's get better up front. We got to get better up front because they're smoking us. And so you see this heavy investment in overhauling their D-line and just using all this capital to get better in the trenches. And Byron they envision him as one of those guys who like, we're not going to get run over by the Niners anymore. That's what that pick. I don't know if they'll frame it that way, but that's the truth. They know what it is. They're tired of losing to the Niners and the Rams, and so to speak. So I'm fascinated with that pick, and you've upped the hype train. Now we're Byron Murphy, the second guys on this show, as well. Same thing has been with the linebacker class too, though. I mean, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan have been just putting Seattle linebackers in the spin cycle since 2017. All right, so then you bring in Tyrice Knight. They draft him. You mentioned him as like a day 3 sleeper-ish guy, which kind of interesting. We already got a little bit of discrepancy here. You kind of mentioned some of his processing stuff in the beast, And then it was funny. One of the first things that Mike McDonald mentioned to us, we're like, "Hey, what do you like about him?" He's like, "Nah, man, the way he processes, he processes faster than everyone." So what are you seeing versus maybe what Mike McDonald is seeing in that specific aspect of his game, that process and trigger?
Oh no, I love his trigger. I mean, he trusts his eyes. Now his initial read might not always be right, but he trusts his eyes, no doubt about it, and he triggers fast. And he gets downhill. He attacks with purpose. I mean, you don't have like what 15 and a half tackles for loss. You don't have 15 and a half tackles for loss if you're not triggering fast and trusting what you see. And part of that's pre-snap anticipation. Part of it is just that initial, okay, they're doing this, boom, I'm going. And again, sometimes it could be a trap, and he takes himself out of the play. But when you have 4.6 speed and the way that you trigger downhill like that, yeah, I'm a fan. I am definitely a fan of his. My one issue with him that I struggled with, because I really love against the run, he's terrific. Again, it's the instincts, it's how fast he gets downhill. My main issue with him wasn't the best in terms of take on skills, and then also in coverage. I thought there were he didn't put playmaking coverage on film, and so that's a little bit more of a projection. So using his hands at the point of attack, his eyes get him there. The way he can trigger gets him there. Using his hands to get off blocks, that's where he needs to get better in that area. And then also, I want to see him make more plays in coverage. Those are two areas why he was a day 3 pick and not a top 100 pick. But I certainly understand. I certainly think he fits what they want to be on defense. And the attitude, the way he plays, that's a big part of it.
In the coverage aspect, Mike McDonald, he's kind of known as the linebacker guru in the building, because that's the position that he's coached up pretty closely. He was projecting as well. He said he's basically like you. He's like, see it on the film. You got to envision a little bit. But one of the traits that he identified, he said, Tyrice stays square in coverage. That was something that stood out to him, because his whole thing with linebackers, the whole defense is you got to go through us, not around us, which is football speak that I love. Can you envision a world where he's good in coverage, perhaps because of that speed and because of that ability to stay square in coverage?
Yeah, I think it's all about his understanding of what the offense is trying to do, because I think he sees the field so well in front of him, but it's all about the peripheral vision. That's where it needs to improve. So he's watching the quarterback, but he also understands what this crossing route is doing, or he sees this combination over here. So just instead of see ball get ball, it's seeing the entire field and understanding what these different route combinations are trying to achieve on any given play. That's where I think he needs to take the biggest step. But his instincts are something that are a strong selling point with him. So I think you can get there. It's just, instead of see ball, get ball, it's okay, let's expand your vision a little bit. Let's expand the way you're thinking of, what the offense is trying to do. So yeah, that is a projection, but this is the type of guy that I think you feel comfortable making that projection once you get to day 3.
Yeah, and we might be saying this is a projection as well, that Mike McDonald's corners are to Mike McDonald what linebackers, corners are to Pete Carroll what linebackers are to Mike McDonald. Pete he didn't take him high very often, because he was like, I can work with this guy if he just does a few things here and there, because he was DB guy. We might be seeing that with Mike McDonald, where they don't get many scenarios where he takes a guy high, because it's like, I can give me a guy who's got a couple traits, give me in the 4th round, I could turn him into something. We'll see. It's so early, but that I'm kind of getting that sense from, because Pete was like, you can give me Trey Flowers, play safety at Oklahoma State. I can play on it. I can move him. I can move him around a little bit. Give me Richard Sherman. Give me a Byron Maxwell. Give me a Jeremy Lane. I could turn these guys into starting caliber players. Even DJ Reed turned him into an outside corner when they got him from the Niners. So there's tons of examples.
And with him too, he played inside and outside over his time at UTEP, and he was productive at both spots. And one other thing with him, I was talking to a scout before the draft about Knight, and the scout said he gave him a lot of credit, because he played, he ran really well at the combine, that it would have been easy for him to just say, no pro day for me. I'm good. I tested really well. I did the position drills really well. but the scout said that he made it a point to tell teams, hey, I'm not going to run at my pro day, but I'm going to go through every single position drill. And he did that because he wanted all the scouts to come there to see his teammates, because there was no other reason for scouts to go see UTEP this year. With all due respect to all the other players from UTEP coming out this year, there was no other reason for these scouts to really go there. But Tyrice Knight made it a point to make sure they knew, okay, yeah, if you come here, I'm going to go through all the positional drills. And a big reason he did that was to make sure that his teammates were able to get NFL eyes on them as well. And so the fact that the scout brought that up to me said a lot.
No, that's huge, because especially for those guys, those teammates, man, that's a big deal. You just it takes one team to be like, hey, maybe let's invite this guy. I don't know much about him, but we saw him at Tyrice's pro day. Another guy I'm interested in. Mostly, I want to see if Mike McDonald can be guru guy. And they overhauled their linebacker room with JB, getting rid of JB and Bobby Wagner. Let's close this out with the first time I think I've seen this, where the Seahawks take two guys from the same secondary in the same draft. We're taking Nehemiah Pritchett and D.J. James, both cornerbacks from Auburn. Let's start with Nehemiah, since he's who they took first. 4'3" guy, decent arm length. Looks like he has good feet too, and a little bit I've seen of him. But I would have thought maybe with those traits, particularly with the speed and the arms, that he would have had a lot more ball production. Doesn't look like he had a ton in college. I don't know why that is. Maybe I was posed that to you. Why wasn't that there? Was that just not targets, or maybe something else with his skill set?
That was my hang up with Pritchett, was once his back was turned to the ball, you don't feel good about him making a play on the ball. When it's in front of him and he has a chance to drive, he can go make a play on the ball. But he has you laid it out. He has the speed. He has solid size where he can match up well on the outside. But when the ball's in the air, his locating ability and then the ball skills were not consistent on film. And that, to me, that was a hang up with me. That I struggled to get past that. Now, I gave him a 4th round grade because, again, you just don't find many 6-foot guys that have 4.36 speed and have a lot of the tools that he does. But that was my hang up with Pritchett, was his inability to consistently find the football. Even though he would stay stride for stride, he's a rangy athlete. Being able to find the ball, especially when he turned his back, that was a hang up for me.
I'm curious because in college football, they play a lot of zone, a lot of man. They just play whatever that their opponent basically presents them. In the NFL, it's a little more challenging to play man to man, but in certain scenarios, you're going to have to clamp down and stop the guy in front of you. In this scenario, do you see him more as a stronger zone defender? Now, obviously, we don't know what Mike McDonald plans to do with the Seahawks defense, but I would imagine in a few years he's going to want to try to make it look like what he did in Baltimore. Would that fit for Nehemiah, or is that something that you mentioned he's going to have to be better at tracking and making plays on the football, no matter what coverage he's in?
Yeah, well, and that's certainly true. They did mostly zone at Auburn, with a little bit of man worked in, but he has the tools to be a man-to-man corner. When you have, because he can stay stride for stride up and down the field with any receiver. He has that ability. He has good enough size. So I'm not really worried about him in man-to-man. And in zone, he does a nice job too. Again, it's just a matter of being able to find the football and understand, be able to read receivers so he understands the route and then go make a play on the football. That part of it just doesn't come super natural to him. So can he get better? Yeah, I think he can get better somewhat. But usually that's an area where it gets a little bit tougher once you get to the NFL and you're facing NFL caliber receivers and you play everything. The game speed is just a lot faster. So I think for Pritchett, I projected him as more of a rotational corner in the NFL. If he's able to, make more plays on the ball, then all of a sudden, he's got a chance to earn a starting role.
Yeah, with that speed, the good arm length too, over 31 inches. Like you said, it's there. It is there. I imagine that the Seahawks might be thinking, hey, look, man, we can coach you up on what to do when the ball gets there, but we can't teach you how to get there. You can't teach you to run faster. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of glass half full projection with him. with his teammate DJ James, the Seahawks have already mentioned, like you had projected in the Beast, that he's probably going to play some inside, which makes sense. Typically, with the outside to inside conversion, I can usually pull up a guy's like draft report and say, okay, short shuttle, give me agility drills, okay, inside guy. But with DJ, as you know, the agility stuff wasn't great. But what is it about him that makes you think he can play nickel? Does he just have better short area quickness on film than he showed in his testing?
Yeah, I think so, and he's just the click and close is really impressive with him. So like, it's just not a lot of wasted movements, a lot of wasted time. He makes up his mind and he goes and makes a play. And he's kind of the opposite of Pritchett, where the ball production wasn't necessarily there with DJ James. It was there. He led the team in passes defended this past year. He was a guy that really the main area that stuck out with him was the lack of size. He's an undersized guy. He's probably he's always going to be around between 175 and 180 pounds. That's probably what his playing weight is going to be. And if you're going to play in the nickel, that's something where you think about some of the bigger slots that are for some teams use. Some teams use tight ends in the slot. Other teams, they try to expose some undersized nickels by running it to that side of the field. So that's where DJ James is going to be important for him to show that, hey, yeah, I'm a little bit undersized, but I can still match up. And that's being a more reliable tackler, matching up with size. That's what he's going to have to prove in order to earn consistent reps on the field. And I think that's why he fell to the 6th round like he did, because the lack of size and teams just having a little bit of doubt creep in that he's going to be able to match up with some of the size and strength that the NFL is going to throw at him.
Yeah, no, the Seahawks. Kobe Bryant would talk to me about that his rookie year. As you know, he played outside at Cincinnati. They moved him to nickel, and they had him in there taking on pulling guards. And the ice bath is a lot more necessary in the pros when you taking on 300-pound guards and pullers and stuff like that at nickel. So yeah, that's put a guy 175 out there. We're running to your side. But if you can handle it, you're going to be a starter in this league for a long time. And that's I like what you mentioned about the quick trigger too there, because something else that guys who have played nickel, at least in Seattle's scheme, have told me is it just happens so fast there. You don't have time to think. It's like one quarterback sitting his back foot, you need to drive and you got to trust your eyes. If not, like, it's a first down and you're coming off the field because you don't play in base. So make that play. So your coach is going to, will, show you some love and you guys can get off the field. So as you said, are you saying like DJ is probably one of those guys who is going to trust what he's seeing, kind of very similar to Tyrice, and that's how he had the ball production that he had at Auburn?
I love corners that always ball hunt. They're always on the hunt for. It doesn't matter if before the ball gets to the receiver or after the ball gets to the receiver. He's always looking to rake it out, get it on the ground, turn completions into incompletions. He has that my ball mentality to him, and so that's something that really stood out on film, and something that is, I think, natural for him. Like, he's not thinking about it; he just does it. So I think that's something that'll help him as he tries to earn some type of consistent role here with the Seahawks.
Chris, I'm so hyped about this draft class now after talking to Dane. I usually am. But
it makes it that much better. We learn a lot about these guys, and now we can see what each individual player is going to bring to the Seahawks offense, defense, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. I know our listeners are going to be stoked to hear this as well, especially with Tyrice Knight, Nehemiah Pritchett, Byron Murphy. The list goes on of all these talented guys that the Seahawks drafted. So, Dane, we appreciate you taking some time and giving us the insight, man. If you guys haven't, please go check out The Beast. It's on The Athletic, still there. It's really good stuff. Over, you said 2,000 athletes, 3,000. What number is it?
Just shy of 2,000. It's like 1,960 some. So all the testing data for all those guys are in there, for scouting reports for over 400 players. So yeah, it's valuable before the draft, during the draft, and then even now after the draft to kind of catch up on these guys. And the group of undrafted free agents. If you want to find out what a guy's short shuttle was, it's in there. So yeah, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, again, Dane has it covered. So I'll even put the link of The Beast in our description on YouTube and on Spotify and whatnot. Apple. So that way you guys aren't just, what is he talking about? The Beast? You can check it out and be blown away, spend hours just scrolling through, reading all of these amazing profiles on these athletes. But Dane, I guess you're getting ready to start the Beast for next year, right?
I try in the month of May to kind of take a step back a little bit, but yeah, June
Good.
1st, you better believe it. I'll be diving right back into the film, and it takes that long to put it together. So yeah, we'll be right back to it before we know it.
Well, enjoy that month and so off, man. We really appreciate your time again. Is there anything you want to plug outside of the Beast that you just put together? Because I know you're doing podcasts. I know you've also written some other stories, but anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, I don't do draft grades, but I power rank one. We kind of mentioned it before. I power rank 1 through 32, my favorite draft classes, and then my way too early 2025 mock draft was on The Athletic today. So yeah, this is a good time to have your Athletic subscription to get all of our draft coverage from the team to team to the national perspective and all of that. So and of course the Beast is included as part of that. So good time to have your subscription.
There it is. Dane, thank you again, man. Enjoy the rest of your morning, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Here he is, Dane Brugler, the man, the myth, the legend with the Beast. We'll catch you guys later. It's another episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We want to thank you again for all the love and support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe on YouTube at Seahawks Man to Man. I know a lot of you guys are listening. Just go ahead and go to that YouTube and subscribe on the road to 4K. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Oh, appreciate the love and support, guys. We'll catch you next time.